Hi, I'm Randy Simmons for Eye on Arts. Today we have a special show for you guys. We are currently at the Yeiser Art Center in downtown Paducah. The show that's currently on is the Wastelanders. The Yeiser does host a lot of other shows during the year, but today's show we're going to be talking about the Wastelanders. I've got a group of artists in here to talk to. They're going to talk about how the Wastelanders started, the group themselves, and a little bit of their art history, and talk about their work personally. So let's go in and check out the show. See, closed for interview. I can't believe this has happened again. I think it's conspiracy. Hey, I'm ready. Thank you.
Well, I didn't know if part of the sketch was me letting you in. So
No, you are part of the sketch now. You did good. My first guest artist from the Wastelanders show is Mark Donham. Mark, I wanted to start out by talking a little bit about the Wastelanders and the group, the organization, and where they started and where the name came from. So can you explain that to us?
Sure. Most of the artists in the Wastelanders got to know each other in the 1980s when the Yeiser was known as the Art Guild, and there was an active artist committee. And it was pretty active, and we had drawing classes and film series and such. And so we knew each other for a long time. And of course, the artists around town that have been here were watching the Lower Town arts community come in and flourish, and thought that was a really cool thing, but also we're interested in keeping our own, sort of the indigenous art that was here going. And I had been working for Sarah Rausch, and she has a space on the second floor of her building at 409 Broadway that she was wanting to do a show, and a couple of years ago, her and I did a two-person show on her birthday, and it was pretty well attended, and we had decided that maybe we'd do another one. Mm-hmm. And we thought we'd invite some more artists, so we invited the artists that we had known around town for a while. It was the Wastelanders. It was kind of a joke. Somebody was quoted in the Paducah Sun as it's saying something like that Paducah had been an arts wasteland in the decades past, and so we jokingly called ourselves the Wastelanders.
That's very clever. So you guys have been labeled as the Wastelanders.
Well, we're self-labeled, but it is interesting that the name is stuck.
And you've had previous exhibits as a group at Sarah Rausch's studio.
Yes, we call it the Red Ink Gallery, and it's a second floor of 409, and there's been 2 Wastelander shows now.
Great, and I've been to one of them. I'm sorry I missed the last one, but they had a wonderful turnout for both of the exhibits. So could you tell me about your history with art?
Well, when I was about 20 years old, and I was a freshman at Western Illinois University, and I met a couple of guys that were grad students in art, and they ran a art supply store on the square in Macomb, Illinois, and they used to come and hear me play music in bands that I played in, and so they invited me up. They had a studio up above their art store, and I never had done any kind of visual art, never really thought I could, but they had these long tables that ran the whole floor, the whole length of this floor, and they had all kinds of art supplies and paper and such. So we'd go up there and listen to music and hang out. And one night I was up there and I drew a little, just a silly little stick figure kind of thing with magic markers of some kind of a critter. And so the next time I came up there, one of the guys had taken it on a really nice big sheet of paper and done this really nice pastel drawing of my figure and had hung it up, and I thought that was so cool. And that's basically got me real excited, and they told me they really liked what I'd done, I should do more, and they encouraged me. And so I've basically been doing some kind of visual art expression since then.
What kind of artist would you call yourself? What label would you give yourself?
Well, I'm not that much into labels, but since I don't have any formal training in art, I kind of relate to being what's called an outsider artist. That's kind of the current term.
And what does
or
that
a
mean?
folk artist, kind of. It's an artist that has not had formal training and whose art doesn't really fit into what might be considered the more academic field.
Mm-hmm. So you're a self-trained artist.
Yes.
All right. Well, you do wonderful work. Do you have the opportunity to exhibit anywhere else outside of Paducah?
I have, on and off. Like recently, I was in a show with you, as a matter of fact, up in the Mitchell Museum in Mount Vernon, Illinois, the Southern Illinois Open. Oh, yeah. And I actually, in I think it was 1987, had got a drawing in the Speed Museum, had a international jury drawing show, and I got a drawing in that. And that's probably the biggest show I was ever in.
And that's a big show to be in the J.B. Speed Museum.
Yeah, it was cool.
So your work that's in this show, in the Wastelanders show, currently at the Yeiser Arts Center, can you tell me a little bit about this piece that we're looking at, the title first, and what your ideas were on this piece?
Well, I call it Lion Tamer, and it's a piece off of a needlepoint that I bought at a junk store and cut up, and I got some other figures out of this needlepoint. It had a couple figures in it that I really liked, and this was sort of a residual piece, and it kind of reminded me of an animal. So I took and I pasted that down on a piece of acid-free ragboard, and I like to put figures in a lot of my pieces. I do some abstract, but most of the time I'm doing something representational, and I write quite a bit, and I'm into stories and representing things, and so I think that I just tend to like to do something that tells a little bit of a story. And this is it's an interaction with between this person and this animal. And there's also a bird up in the sky that's coming down, or some kind of a flying thing.
So this is basically a mixed media collage
Yes.
piece.
And I've done, for some strange reason, I've done a number of pictures in the last couple of years with figures with white gloves. I'm not exactly sure where that comes from, but I like the image. Mm-hmm. And so this guy's got white gloves. He's got a little baseball cap that I cut out of a piece of orange paper and pasted on there.
You've got some other works in the show. I'd like to go check those out as well.
Great.
Mark, and tell us a little bit about this piece.
Well, this one's called The Price is Right, and I started out, when I had a one-person show at Maiden Alley Gallery a couple summers ago, and there was a lot of paintings in there. I think I had 56 pieces.
Wow.
And I took the name tags off of those pieces and brought them home, and they were just stacked up on my desk. And I'm like, what am I going to do with those? So I started pasting them down. And so I had some of these, I collected some of these older price tags, and then I had some newer ones, and I started putting them in. And I was thinking about to me, it's a personal piece about how I value art. And of course, artists, when you show in galleries, you're expected to have your pieces up for sale. So you've got to put a price on them, and sometimes that's a hard thing to do. And so this piece is about pricing art and what it's worth.
I love the idea, and your mixed media approach to this using price tags and the tags of your artwork. That's a great idea. Tell me about the matting and the framing, and how that works with the piece.
Well, my wife, Christy, who's one of the artists in this show, Christy Hansen, she works at Gallery 600 with Nancy Flowers, who's also another artist in this show. And they have been doing, well, Nancy's been in the fine framing business for over 20 years, and Christy's been working with her as her assistant for a number of years now, and they know how to do it. And so when I went over there to frame this piece, they have all these samples, and you go through them and look, and you pin them up and you look at them, and we looked at all different kinds of combinations and thought that this piece would be appropriate for something a little bit brighter and different. This isn't the kind of a mat that you would put on a lot of pieces, but it does work with this. It does. I think it's fun.
It does. It does have a warmth to it, a playfulness approach, which I think goes great with the mixed media and your ideas as well. I believe we have a chance to maybe look at one more piece.
Great.
And tell us a little bit about this work.
This piece is called Snake Charmer, and for the main figure, I took some of my old paintings and cut them up and pasted them back together. And then I had this old handkerchief that had been embroidered along the edges, and it had just gotten frayed in the center, and it was pretty useless. But I really liked the embroidery, so I cut the embroidery out, and I used it for the snake. And it's just a guy walking with a snake wrapped around his arm. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. That's how. And it's fun. The figure's looking both ahead where he's walking, but back at you at the same time. And I just think it makes for a neat image.
I like the idea of it being recycled from older paintings. That's a great idea.
Well, I looked at some of my older paintings aren't that good, but I thought, there's good pieces in here, so I'll just cut this figure out here. I like it, and paste it back in and make it better.
That's a great idea. I love that. I love that aspect of it. We have a few more artists to look at, so let's check out one of the other Wastelanders. And with me now is Juanita Gilliam, one of the other Wastelanders. Juanita, you want to tell me a little bit about your history with the Wastelanders?
Well, it really goes back a long way, because I was one of the first, after the organization of the Yeiser, I was one of the first new members down the road after the group organized. And it was probably in the late 60s, early 70s. And it's been a great group, but we have kind of kept in contact somewhat through the years. But the Wastelanders, thank goodness, kind of organized thanks to Mark Donham and several others. And then I came on board after the Wastelanders organized.
Now, you're a pretty well-known name in this area. You've been involved with the arts even at a high school level, I believe?
Right. I've taught in McCracken County Public Schools and for Murray State University a couple of years. And now I have my own private teaching studio downtown, the art room, commercial.
So you stay pretty busy on top of bean an artist yourself.
This is my 47th year of teaching, so I must like it or just don't like to do housework, so I have to have an excuse.
47 years.
Yes.
That is a long time. And you look great, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about your work that's hanging on the wall here with a pastel drawing.
Well, being a teacher, I do delve into all different kinds of medium. And this piece I did while I ran in on Randy's classes, because I get a free model there, and they were doing fruit. And fruit's not my thing, but I thought, okay, I think I'll try a very dramatic background of a complementary color scheme. And then I tried the black frame, and I thought, wow, I like it better now that it's deep and dark, and I call this one Dark and Sour. And I like it better because it has the dark background. So it was playing with colors and color combinations, basically.
Great. It's a beautiful drawing. I like your use of the complementary colors, which normally used in complementary colors could make mud, but you danced around that and used complements to make some really nice shadows in there as well.
Thank you.
It turned out really nice. A good sense of texture as well with the pastel flecks. happening here to describe the lemon
Orange peel.
rinds. I'm sorry, the orange.
I mean, no, it is
Oh, I
lemons,
was right.
thank you.
Okay, lemons. Great. Well, you have a couple of other pieces in here, and I'd like to go check those out too.
Okay.
Juanita, what's the title of this work?
This is Father Ignatius and Friends. I found this man in a National Geographic, his face, and I loved his face. And I knew I wanted to paint that face. And later, I saw the birds at a different point in time in a different catalog, and they are extinct. I can't remember the names of them. And I thought they just seemed to need each other. So therefore, they got in the same painting.
So you sort of collaged this piece together
Yeah,
from
yeah,
different
yeah,
photographs, and they're all from National Geographic.
Yes.
And this is an acrylic work. Do you normally work with acrylics?
Yes, I do, just for the expediency of the drying time. And this is an old canvas. I love painting on old canvases that have a texture. And this one had so much texture already built up that I really was intrigued by that and just painted over that.
I see a lot of texture, especially in these areas up through here, and that's probably from the painting underneath it.
Right, right.
So what's on your agenda for the future? Any more acrylic paintings?
I love doing portraits, but then again, I love whatever I'm teaching at the time. So, but I think if I was demanded to do one thing from this point on, it would be portraiture, and I do commissioned work, so I like people's faces.
You did a portrait of me for class.
I did, didn't I?
Yes, and I've got that.
I'm sure you've got it framed and on the wall. But
Close to it. I need your signature. No, you've already got your signature
do
on it,
I?
I believe. Yeah, so it will be framed, I guarantee.
Oh,
It'll go with the rest of my collection.
Good.
Well, I thank you for being part of the interview here, and we'll see you at the
Well,
reception.
thank you and the college for doing this for us.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
My next Wastelander artist is E.J. Abell. And could you tell me a little bit about your history with the Wastelanders?
Well, I have been a member of the group for a long time. As with Juanita, I joined the Paducah Art Guild in the early 70s. And we were a pretty tight-knit group at that time. We didn't have a director, and we did everything that had to be done in a gallery. We had to choose the shows, hang the shows, clean the building. And so at one point we were a very close-knit group, and things changed a little. We got directors and we evolved, and one thing that changed was we became a little less connected with each other. And when the Wastelanders formed the group to actually start exhibiting, we all came back together, and that's been a wonderful thing to come from this. We feel very connected again and have exhibited together, I think now 3 times.
That's great. And you put on wonderful shows each time.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about your history with art.
My history with art, I would have to say, would start way back in elementary school, as most artists would probably say. And I went to a little rural school. We did not really have an art class or an art teacher. But we did have a wonderful lady who taught 4th grade who thought every Thursday afternoon we should have art class. Art class consisted of her handing out little stickers of famous paintings. And she would ask us to put the sticker in the middle of a piece of paper and write about it. And so I was suddenly exposed to Van Gogh and Monet and different artists, and I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed having to look at a piece of artwork, even though it was a little bitty sticker, and kind of think about it, think about what the artist might have been thinking about, the use of color, and all those things. So that's kind of how my interest started, and I love drawing, working with crayons, and then I went to college and majored in art. Found myself teaching art sort of unexpectedly, just on a private basis, and that has continued. I've done that for over 30 years. I've been teaching mostly children for 30 years and doing a little art of my own on the side.
Well, you have some beautiful works here. This is one of 2 assemblages that you have in the Wastelanders show. Can you tell me a little bit about your process and what this means to you?
I think I have sort of come to assemblage through the years because it allows me to combine a lot of different processes. I often use found objects, as I have here with the fish. I believe this piece is something that was used to attach corn to, but a corn dryer or something. But as soon as I saw it, it reminded me of a fish skeleton. And I had this this piece kind of planned in my mind, and I thought that would be a good addition to it. And the piece is about the life process, kind of a personal piece for me.
I really enjoyed this work. The fish, the way you've used the fish image several times in here, swimming around, and then sort of like almost as a, looks almost like a was a display case, obviously. So he's on show, and then like a death piece.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so I'm not far off the mark then.
You're not.
Right, life process. It's a really interesting work. We have a painting that I would like to check out as well. That's on the show card for the Wastelanders show.
Okay, be glad to do that.
EJ, tell us about this painting here that we have on the wall.
This is a portrait of Mary Yeiser, and this came from a class that I was taking out at the community college, and we needed a model, and Mary heard about the class and actually volunteered to come out and model for us. And she came for maybe 4 or 5 sessions. And it is an old painting. It was painted in 1976, so it was done quite a while ago. My style has very much changed since then, but I do still enjoy doing portrait work, and I like to draw the figure. So she very graciously sat for us. She was a wonderful model. Of course, she knew about modeling from the other end at that point, but it was great fun working with her, and felt honored to be able to paint her portrait.
You did a really wonderful job on the portrait, and it's also great that it's in this show and at this time, because Miss Yeiser just recently passed away.
That's correct. She was, I believe, 102, and she was a delightful lady until the very end. I visited with her a few years ago, and we talked a lot about the Yeiser Arts Center and what was happening here. And at that time, she had a lot of her paintings hanging on the walls in her room there at the Convalescent Center. And we had a wonderful visit. She'll be greatly missed.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't get the chance to meet her. And this work is also on the show card as well and represents the Wastelanders exhibit, which I believe is dedicated.
It is. This show is dedicated to her memory.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing this piece with us. I really enjoyed this. And with me now is Wastelander Paula Danby. And thanks for coming on to the show, Paula.
Thank you for having me.
And can you tell me what your relationship is with the Wastelanders group?
Well, I joined the Yeiser in the early 80s, and that's how I became acquainted with them. And we used to meet and have sketching classes on Thursday evenings, I think, and that was my initial association.
And then you've rejoined the group. They've regrouped.
We regrouped. We all had gone our own ways, and then we regrouped and started having these shows at the Red Ink Gallery, and they've been very successful. And
I'm sorry, do you guys meet formally other than the exhibitions?
Occasionally, yeah, we do. We have our little meetings and discuss, what we're going to do from time to time, and it's fun.
And tell me about your history with art. Have you been making art since childhood?
Well, actually, I did, but when I got into high school, I didn't take any art. I was interested in it, but I didn't take it. I took business classes. And then after I got out of high school, I went a year to a vocational school. SIU had a vocational school. And I took my first art class when I was 38. I had been home and been a homemaker and mother. And I took it at West Kentucky, Paducah, and Community College with Bernard Sassine. And from there, I went to Murray State and took classes under Bob Head, from whom I learned a tremendous amount. And he was very encouraging. And I've been painting 27 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is a long time.
So you do mostly oil paintings, but there's a little bit of a collage element to
Well,
your work.
I do oils, but I also do acrylics. The ones that are in this exhibit are acrylics. And I do include collage, incorporates collage. And most of my work is, I have incorporated self-portraiture. And I started doing self-portraits because it was difficult finding models. And when I did, it made me uncomfortable because I felt sort of inhibited. And I felt that I had to explain why I exaggerated a line or not, and with myself I could be much freer and I could do as I please, and they're much more expressive.
Well, I really enjoy your self-portraits that are in the show. Can you tell me a little bit about what's happening in this work?
Well, I don't tell a whole lot about my work, what's going on, because I think it takes away from the mystery of it.
Sure, I love the mystery.
But I have sketchbooks that I use, and I make sketches in the evening, and when I get my ideas, and then I take them to the canvas. And as I said, I don't like to tell too much because I think that it kills the mystery within the work. But of course, my frames are a part of my paintings also, and they're very, very dramatic. And I usually add golf tees on them. My husband, who happens to be an avid golfer, has golf tees lying around all the time, and so I add those to my work. And I've put seashells on this particular one, and little beads and tacks, carpet tacks.
Well, I think it adds another element to your work that I find really interesting. You have this sort of almost a church window approach to the work, and with the halo. So there's certainly religious icons, obviously with a haloed angel here.
Right.
And this figure here as well. Looks a little bit threatening too.
Well,
see this dark blue, coming in almost to surround your self-portrait, and you're using a complementary color scheme.
Sometimes my work has an element of surprise, and sometimes it disturbs a little, and sometimes there's a touch of humor. I like to touch on some of those elements.
And you've got a larger painting that I'd like to take a look at. It's a diptych. And,
Yes.
I would like to go check that out. You've got a lot going on in that piece.
I do.
Okay, let's go look at that.
Okay.
And Paula, tell us, what's the title of this work?
A Slice of Moon. And I can't explain why I named it that, but anyway, that's the title. And this is an acrylic, and it's a diptych. And here again, I've included my self-portraits. And I was very free with color with this particular one. Sometimes I limit my palette depending on the mood of the piece, but this one I was very free with it and enjoyed every minute of it.
And you said this was acrylic as well.
This is acrylic.
Okay, and keeping with your theme, self-portrait, we do see some religious connotations.
There is.
Here's what I'm picking up on.
Yes.
Maybe a little bit of alluding to art history with this figure here. And you did mention something about a circus being portrayed.
Yes.
And is it safe to say that all these elements are autobiographical? That something about your life happening?
Somewhat. I've been able to document landmarks in my life. Yes, my whole body of work has more or less an autobiography, because I've been able to capture these landmarks in my life, and then I put them on canvas with paint.
It's interesting that you do your self-portrait a lot. Do you do other family members as well?
I have in the past, but as I said earlier, it's hard people don't like to sit much, they don't like to model, and so I'm always available, and I can work whenever I please when I do myself.
It's almost like you're exposing your soul whenever you do self-portraits.
Well, in a sense it is. It really is.
You're putting yourself out on the pedestal.
Yes, and I don't go out, I don't intend to flatter necessarily. I do just what I feel inside, and I try to do each one differently. I never work the same way twice. I like to change.
Well, there's certainly a sense of mystery to all of your work, and I always notice a correlation in the way that you're dressed as well. There's certainly a mysterious, got a mystery aura to you. I think that reflects in your work as well. So, good job, great work, and I'm glad you were able to be a part of the show. And,
well, I appreciate you inviting me.
And I'm sure we'll be talking again in the future.
Yes.
Great, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And this wraps up another episode of Eye on Arts. I'll see you guys next time. Dan, does my butt look big from that angle?
It's not the angle.
Oh, it's my butt. No, your butt looks big in those pictures.